What's up, guys? Welcome to a postseason edition of the Football Corner podcast. I'm your host, Jeremiah Queen. And of course, before we recap what happened on Wild Card Weekend, which was spectacular, I'd like for all my viewers out there on YouTube to hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, so you can stay up to date with the channel and new drops and new videos to hit the channel. Also, if you listen to me on a podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or even Spotify, go subscribe to the podcast. And as always, let's cue it up. It is time to recap Wild Card Weekend in the 2022 NFL season. I'm going to start with the AFC side of things. There was 3 games played from the AFC playoff picture. And the first game I would like to talk about will be my hometown team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm going to give myself a Duval. That is right. So the Jacksonville Jaguars took on the Los Angeles Chargers in TIAA Bank Field. The Chargers had to travel across the country to play one of the hottest teams in the NFL, let alone the AFC. The Jaguars are riding a 5 to 6 game winning streak. Trevor Lawrence has been playing like an MVP. Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk both had 1,000 yards at their respective positions. And Josh Allen, their pass rusher, has been coming on strong as of late in the end of the season. But we could go to the Chargers side of the thing. The Chargers were riding high. Besides Brandon Staley keeping their starters in Week 18 in a game that didn't even matter. By the way, they lost that game against the Broncos. So Mike Williams was not able to travel to Jacksonville because he has a fracture in his back. Of course, because he played in Week 18, because Brandon Staley wanted him to play in that game so badly, because it meant so much. They were going to be able to get to number 4. No, they wasn't. They're going to stay the 5 seed. They were locked into it. But Brandon Staley, which in his second year as a head coach, has shown that sometimes he doesn't make the best decisions, and the most important decisions should be made by the head coach, and he has failed to do so. So let's jump right into what happened on that Saturday night on NBC. Yeah, Tony Dungy, Al Michaels on the call. Phenomenal atmosphere. Over 70,000 fans in attendance in Jacksonville, which is a big thing because Jacksonville has been longing for something to root for since the 2017 season. And let's be honest, before 2017, the team hasn't really done anything. So this team has been longing for something. Chargers fans have been longing for something out of Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley. So both fan bases have been longing for both teams to show some excitement. And regardless of what's going to happen, both young quarterbacks in Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert in their first playoff game, one of them was going to come out to be victorious. And that just happened to be Trevor Lawrence. Let me just take you back to the beginning of the game. So Trevor Lawrence ended up throwing 4 interceptions in the first half. Chargers go up to a 27-0 lead. Trevor Lawrence will drive down the field at the end of the game to put points on the board, throws a pass to Evan Ingram to an end zone. Now the score's 27-7. Chargers will get the ball first. They will punt, not get a field goal. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars will go down and score. He will hit Marvin Jones wide open, puts a nasty move on Asante Samuel, who, by the way, Asante Samuel's had not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions in his playoff debut. Asante Samuel was on fire. He was playing some of the best football of his career and on the biggest stage when you want your players to play their best. So that happened. And then it's Chargers can't really get nothing going. They're not running the ball. They're getting a bunch of having a bunch of drives that don't end in points. So they get I think they score 1 field goal in the second half, will push them to 30 points. And the Jacksonville Jaguars have 4 positions in the second half and score on all 4 of them. 3 were 4 touchdowns, 1 2-point conversion, and a what I call Trevor Lawrence dunked on some defensive linemen in the end zone to get that 2-point conversion. A lot of things in that game was so it was up and down. Great game. You thought it was going to be a blowout. You thought the moment was too big for the young Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. Most quarterbacks who throw 4 interceptions never come back from it, ever. I mean, I'm trying to think of a time a quarterback threw 4 interceptions in the first half of a game and came back to win. Now, Trevor Lawrence is not the first guy to throw 4 interceptions and have 4 touchdowns in the playoff game. Big Ben did that back in the 2020 COVID season with the Pittsburgh Steelers was on an 11-game winning streak. They lost they lost like 4 or 5 in a row, and then they will get one more win to go 12-5, and they'll get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs by the Cleveland Browns with Baker Mayfield. In that game, Big Ben had the similar start to the game. Turnover, which were interception after interception after interception. That team will go on to lose in a game that started to get close at the end, but it just wasn't enough to beat the Cleveland Browns. Back to the Chargers and Jags. People were hating on Justin Herbert about him not playing the best football. I thought he played very, very well. I think one thing people are not noticing about that game is that the Jaguar defense play really good football. Well, Jeremiah, they gave up 30 points. Not necessarily. If you look at all the drives the Chargers have, they were inside the 40-yard line because of the turnovers that Trevor Lawrence committed. So they was dealing with source field position, and they only had to score 30. They scored 27 points over turnovers, and they had 3 points when they had to drive the length of the field. Think about that. Also, they had a missed field goal, not necessarily Justin Herbert's fault, but when they actually had to drive the length of the field, they scored 3 points. They had 4 possessions in the second half. 3 points came out of it. That's not even 1 point per drive. Now, if you go to the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive side of things, they were lighting it up. Doug Peterson had this team ready to come out in the second half to play an excellent football game. It came down to a 30-plus yard field goal by the kicker for the Jaguars. And even though it looked like it was going to go to the right, curve right back in, now the Jaguars are moving on to the divisional round to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's transition to the second game of wildcard weekend on the AFC side of things. It'll be the Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins. This is a game where the Buffalo Bills are favored by 13.5. 13.5. No one thought this game would be close, and the score ended up being 34-31. If it was for Mike McDaniels having a third-string quarterback or Mike McDaniels not be able to manage the clock correctly, the Miami Dolphins might have would have put up one of the biggest upsets that I've seen in playoff history, one of the biggest upsets in playoffs in the past 10 years. Now, Skylar Thompson played his best. He threw 45 times, only completed 18 passes. He had about like 6 drops by his star receivers, and these type of big drops. Jalen Waddle had like 2 to 3 of them by himself. Tyreek Hill had a drop. It was just one of those days for the Dolphins. But their defense sacked Josh Allen 7 times, picked him off twice. They forced a fumble that returned for a touchdown. The Dolphins came to play, and it's upsetting to see that the Dolphins played such a great game, and what the ultimate decision came from Mike McDaniels not be able to understand what down it was or manage the clock correctly. Now I want to go to the Buffalo Bills side of things because they won the game. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He's going to run for a lot of yardage. He's going to throw for 300 yards, and he's going to have 3 touchdowns. But the problem was Josh Allen, and this is why I don't have Josh Allen be in the Super Bowl this year. Now, I'm not saying they can't, but Josh Allen has to fix the turnover problems. Josh Allen, another day where he had 3 turnovers by himself. And he had another fumble that just was recovered by one of his offensive linemen. But you have skilled weapons. If you take care of the ball, Josh Allen, you won't lose the game. But the problem is you put your defense in bad situations. You give the other team extra possessions, and that's how you lose in the playoffs. And they'll bite you this time because you were playing against a third-string rookie quarterback, if I may add. A third-string rookie quarterback, a guy named Skylar Thompson, who last year was playing at Kansas State. You won't be able to get away with that with the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's the team you're going to be playing next. All righty. Finally, the last matchup on the AFC side of things was the Baltimore Ravens versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this team played in Week 18, and you could tell, I said in the last episode, recapping Week 18, that the Ravens really weren't playing their starters. They were trying to get guys healthy, get guys rested to play in a playoff game in Cincinnati. Now, John Harbaugh is the greatest coach in terms of winning road playoff games. No coach has won more road playoff games than John Harbaugh, which is 8. John Harbaugh, and any coach that could win on the road is John Harbaugh, and he could do it. Tyler Huntley, the second-string quarterback, I believe in his 3rd year of playing football, he played a really good game. If the interception was bad, but the biggest mistake came score 17-17 on the 2 1-yard line, about to score 3rd and goal, and they try to do a QB sneak, but he tries to leap over. Okay, keep in mind, Tyler Huntley's like 6 feet, 6'1". Okay, you saw Trevor Lawrence do that in the Chargers-Jags game, but that was on the 1-yard line, and Trevor Lawrence is 6'6". They was on a 2-yard line, and he tried to do that play. Ball gets knocked out of his hand. Chuba Hubbard picks it up. Number 94, the pass rusher, takes it 98 yards for a playoff setting fumble return for a touchdown. And that was the ball game. I thought the Baltimore Ravens defense played really well in that game. They kept their offense in the game, and the offense was making plays. Reports came after the game that J.K. Dobbins wished he could have had a chance to carry the ball, which I agree with. I think the Ravens should have gave J.K. Dobbins, who was explosive all game. I mean, explosive. And if you look at go back to the stats in that game. J.K. Dobbins had 1 possession in the red zone, and it went for a touchdown. 1. They was in I believe there was inside the 10-yard line on like 8+ occasions in that game, and J.K. Dobbins only had 1 touch. And when it came to that, J.K. Dobbins was upset. The Cincinnati Bengals was going to move on. They made the play that requires you to move on to the next round. They've been playing the Buffalo Bills. I think they'll have a better game because what happens is sometimes you play division rivals, and it's just so difficult for you to beat that division rivals because they know you. They played you twice already. And I guess that goes to the same thing for the Buffalo Bills, who had to play the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins played them twice already, and they beat them once. I think if they even had Teddy Bridgewater, they'd probably pull out that game. They'd probably win that game. And I guess that goes the same thing for the Ravens if they had Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson is injured and hasn't played in the past 6 weeks. I thought the Ravens had a good game plan. The game played to their strengths, but unfortunately, they just came up short. So now it will be the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills, which will be a rematch of the Monday Nighter. Tragedy happened with Damar Hamlin. This game will be very emotional, but very entertaining. I can't wait to watch it. Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen to see who goes in the AFC Championship game. It's now time to talk about the NFC playoff matchups. So 2 games happened on Sunday, and no, actually, I correct that. Two games happened over the weekend. 1 game happened on a Saturday. 1 game happened on Sunday. These are the 2 games I'm going to discuss. I will discuss Tampa Bay and Dallas in a future video once the game has been played. I'm pretty excited about that one. I do have Dallas win that game, but let's go to the guys who already have played. So the first matchup, I'll go 49ers Seahawks. The Seahawks kept the game pretty close. They were leading at halftime 17-16. They was driving that 49ers will go score a touchdown to make it 17-23. Seattle will go to Geno Smith will drive the Seattle Seahawks out into the red zone and will fumble. And that fumble would get this catapult the 49ers to scoring 3 straight touchdowns. The game gets out of hand. The ending score will be 41-23. Now let's go to the matchup I actually want to talk about because it was more competitive. And it's not as surprising of an outcome as most people would think, just because a lot of people picked the Giants to win the game. So the score was 31-24 in favor of the Giants. And I'm going to just go ahead and say this. The Vikings are going down in history as the worst 13-win team in NFL history. I've never seen nothing like it. Their offense was good at some points, but their defense was atrocious. Their defense was just god-awful. Their defense could have helped them when they needed the most. And when it comes to the playoffs, you need stops by your defense, and your defense could have stopped Daniel Jones. And I'm going to give Daniel Jones his praise after I go on this soliloquy about the Vikings. The Vikings are going to have to do something. If I'm going in the offseason, the Vikings, you got to go address the defense. You did nothing. Didn't disturb Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones ran for 70+ yards, had 300+ yards passing, which is he's the first player in NFL history. The game is over 100 years old. He's the first player in postseason history to throw for 300 yards and rush for 370 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, one touchdown on the ground. The Vikings couldn't stop him. They let Daniel Jones in the Giants offense. The same offense last year. People forget, the same offense last year. That was only scoring 15 to 16 points a game. 15 to 16 points a game last year. You get a new head coach, you get a new defensive coordinator, and they put 31 points and get a 13-win team. And don't get me started with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, I always try to defend him because statistically he's a good quarterback. But he on a 4th and 12, you do a check down to TJ Hockenson? Just throw it up to Justin Jefferson or something. Something. You want to say, oh, but I didn't like the look. If you didn't like the look, still throw it up. Remember what he did in the Buffalo game? You remember when Justin Jefferson made a big play, one-handed catch on 4th down? Kind of game on the line situation, same situation. You threw it up to him. He should have done that scenario. Because at least we'd be like, oh, he gave his best player a chance. His best player a chance. I understand TJ Hockenson is a Pro Bowler, but he was short of the line of game. And why is TJ Hockenson running a route that's that far underneath the first down marker? There's a lot of issues in that game, but everything has to go towards the defense. I think the offense played just well enough to be a Giants team. But unfortunately, defense wins championships, and their defense didn't show up that day. Kudos to Daniel Jones, who I think has deserved a contract extension, a new contract in the offseason. I've been saying that signed to a 3-year deal, not too much money, something that you could